Charles Darwin was born on February 12, 1809 in Shrewsbury, England, into a wealthy and well-connected family. His grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, was already a respected thinker who had hinted at evolutionary ideas, but it would be Charles who lit the fuse. As a child, Charles collected bugs, bird eggs, and minerals. He was fascinated by the natural world, but struggled in the rigid academic system. His father sent him to medical school in Edinburgh, but Charles hated it. The lectures bored him, and the surgery, well, it absolutely terrified him. Eventually, he was sent to Cambridge to train as a clergyman. Ironically, the man who would challenge biblical creation was preparing for the church. But at Cambridge, he met a few key mentors, especially John Henslow, a botanist who recommended Darwin for a once-in-a-lifetime voyage, a trip aboard HMS Beagle, to chart the coast of South America. In December 1831, the Beagle set sail. Darwin was just 22. For nearly 5 years, Darwin explored coastlines, mountains, rainforests, and islands. He was seasick almost constantly, but relentless in his observations. He collected thousands of specimens, fossils, plants, animals, and rocks. But it was in the Galápagos Islands where everything began to shift. He noticed that the mockingbirds and finches on each island had subtle differences, particularly their beaks. Each bird species seemed perfectly adapted to its island's environment. Why? Darwin began to suspect that species were not fixed. They might change over time, but how? Elsewhere, he uncovered fossils of massive extinct creatures like giant sloths, buried in the same terrain as modern relatives. Could species die out? Could new ones emerge? The seeds of a radical theory had been planted. Darwin returned to England in 1836 and began organizing his findings. He didn't rush to publish. Instead, he studied. For 2 decades, he read biology, geology, artificial breeding, and more. He raised pigeons, studied barnacles, wrote to naturalists all over the world. The puzzle came together slowly. He realized that in nature, individuals compete for resources. Those with favorable traits, faster, stronger, more camouflaged, survive. Those traits are passed on. Over time, this process, natural selection, could create entirely new species. It was a simple but revolutionary idea. Life evolves. Species adapt, not by divine plan, but through survival. Darwin knew how explosive this idea was. He hesitated. He feared not only public backlash, but the pain it might cause his deeply religious wife, Emma. So he waited and waited. In 1858, Darwin received a letter from a young naturalist named Alfred Russel Wallace. Wallace had arrived at the same theory, independently. Darwin was stunned. But instead of racing to beat Wallace, the two agreed to publish their ideas jointly. Still, it was Darwin's book, On the Origin of Species, published in 1859, that would leave a permanent mark. It sold out on the first day. The public reaction? Shock, fascination, outrage. Darwin had not mentioned human evolution directly, but the implication was clear. If animals evolve, then so might we. Cartoons mocked him as a monkey. Church leaders condemned the book. But many scientists were convinced the idea made sense. It explained not only the diversity of life, but its imperfections. 12 years later, Darwin did what many had feared. In The Descent of Man, he made the connection clear. Humans, he argued, are part of the natural world, shaped by the same evolutionary forces as every other creature. He didn't claim we were descended from monkeys. He suggested we shared a common ancestor with apes. This deepened the controversy. But again, Darwin remained calm, rational, and focused on evidence. He continued to explore other areas like sexual selection, emotions in animals, and even the behavior of earthworms. Darwin never saw himself as a revolutionary. He avoided public debates. He let the evidence speak. But in changing science, he reshaped everything: medicine, biology, genetics, paleontology, psychology, even philosophy. Today, evolution by natural selection is the foundation of modern biology, and Darwin himself, he's remembered as one of the greatest thinkers in human history, a man who questioned not to destroy, but to understand. He was a quiet man, a country gentleman who loved beetles and long walks. And yet he dared to follow a truth no one else would. He didn't set out to change the world, but by asking one dangerous question, he did.